Hi, this is Charles Hoskinson broadcasting live from warm, sunny Colorado. Always warm, always sunny, sometimes Colorado. Today is November 19th, and I'm making a quick video to talk about something deeply important to our industry and a good friend of mine. So, as many of you know, I've been in the Bitcoin space for a very, very long time. So, I was part of that slash dot revolution that brought a lot of us in late 2010, early 2011. And in the beginning days, nobody took anything too seriously, but there were a few people running around who did, and Roger was definitely one of them. During his tenure, he started one of the first businesses, which was started before Bitcoin actually, that accepted Bitcoin for payment. And he was a tireless advocate in the early days of Bitcoin, basically telling everybody they needed to accept it and Bitcoin was the future, and a true libertarian at heart. Roger has always been somebody who wears his hearts on his sleeve, and he's always been somebody with tremendous integrity and character. It got to a point where he realized his beliefs were incompatible with the U.S. government, and as a U.S. citizen, he made a decision to rescind his citizenship and live abroad, as many Americans do on a pretty regular basis. Usually that's the end of the story. After you're no longer a U.S. citizen, you're living abroad, you're running your businesses abroad. Traditionally, you don't really do much with the United States. Then something very strange happened where the U.S. government decided 10 years after he did this to basically go after him for more taxes than the already enormous amount of taxes that he's already paid. Without any negotiation or conversation, they've basically arrested him seeking extradition, and Roger's looking at up to 109 years in prison, 10 years after he rescinded his citizenship for a tax case. It's unprecedented, and it's an example of the bullying and persecution that we've come to know inside the cryptocurrency space as a consequence of the current administration, which is soon being replaced by a pro-crypto administration. So from my part, I'm going to do everything in my power to see if we can find a way to blunt this or get a pardon. But what you can do is sign a petition and read more about Roger's case and story, freerogernow.org. Roger is one of the reasons why we're all here, because I don't frankly believe that Bitcoin would have been as successful as it is today, or even perhaps survived, if it was not for his vigilant efforts. He took a huge chance on Bitcoin and our ecosystem when it was small, fledgling, and no one cared about it, and spoke for it. And those foundational conversations that he had and evangelism that he had is one of the reasons why Bitcoin grew the way it did. And we all stand on those foundations. And he's lived a very unique and colorful life, and he's had a lot of ups and downs, but he's a man of great integrity and a good human being. And overall, we as an ecosystem should never forget our own and never leave them behind. So if you're part of the Bitcoin ecosystem or you're curious about this case, I encourage you to go to the link and sign the petition. And as I said, hopefully the new administration will do things a little differently. I don't have a lot of patience for the bullying and harassment that our industry as a whole has faced, as we've seen the bullying and harassment for CZ. We've seen the bullying and harassment of all these major cryptocurrency companies, from Kraken to Coinbase and others. And we've seen a government all too comfortable with using every tool in its portfolio, whether it be intimidation or economic deplatforming, or even turning things into criminal cases in order to stifle our industry. I believe this is actually one of the reasons why the current administration lost at the polls. The American people are pretty tired and pretty fed up with the weaponization of the U.S. government to persecute people that the current regime disagrees with. And I believe that this case definitely is political if you look at the facts and circumstances with it. Hopefully the new administration will view things differently. We'll all do our part behind the scenes and in the scenes to affect good outcomes. But as long as there are people that remember Free Ross, and now it looks like he's getting a pardon January 20th, and we keep those pyres burning and we keep those candles lit bright, that's what gives people hope. And I think we can get through this as well. As I said, Roger's a friend. I've known him for well more than a decade. We used to run into each other from time to time on the conference circuit, and he's just a good man. And he deserves better than what's happened here. This is wrong on so many levels. To try to put Roger in prison longer than Al Capone was sentenced, to try to put Roger in prison longer than most murderers and rapists are sentenced for not paying taxes, which he did pay, and going after him 10 years after he rescinded his U.S. citizenship and saying he owes taxes still. It's unprecedented. It's never really happened before in U.S. history, and it sets a very bad judicial outcome if this case continues to go through. It's a miscarriage of justice, and it has to stop. So thank you all for listening, and I hope this encourages some of you to read about Roger's story and get to know a little bit about the early history of Bitcoin. As I said before, we take care of our own, and we always will, and we'll never forget the people that got us to where we're at today, and Roger is one of them. Thank you all.